It's time for fun, learning, commentary, laughs, and more care of the most diverse group in the genealogy and family history world. Welcome to BlackProGen Live with your hosts, Nika and True, and the baddest panel in these pedigree streets. Angela, James, Linda, Alex, Ellen, Tony, Shelly, Teresa, Bernice, Felicia, Willie, Renata, and Tasia. It's Black Pro Gen Live, genealogy, family history research with flavor.
Hola, hello everyone out there in the chat room, and welcome to Black Pro Gen Live. And we are so glad that you all came out here tonight, Tuesday, and spending your evening with us and getting some seasoning for your genealogy. We're fresh off of Maggie, so sit back and relax. We have a special guest with us, and I'm your co-host for the evening, True Lewis, and I'm going to turn the mic over now to your host, Nika Smith.
Hey, True, we're no longer in the same little screen.
I know, I miss you already.
I know. I don't know what we're gonna do with ourselves because we had a blast at Maggie. If you missed the episode, I am sorry for you. Actually, no. You can go back and watch the replay of Maggie 2018. It was significantly shorter than most of the shows that we have, but you did get an eyewitness view into what Wednesday night at Maggie looks like, which includes brick wall night. You've got folks doing homework because this is not a conference, it's an institute. We actually answered viewer questions live as folks were asking them who were watching live. So be sure to go back and look at the last episode, episode 61 of Black Virgin Live, which we talked about the Midwest African American Genealogy Institute. All right, tonight's episode is all about the Lonestar State. We know, don't chastise us too bad, right? Because mama mama will probably be complaining because it took us forever to get to Texas, but that's all right. We're going to be talking all about people of color genealogy research in the Lone Star State. So thank you so much for joining us with Black ProGen for Black ProGen's episode of people of color in Texas. All right, before we get into the content, we always have to remind you to be sure to join the conversation. Have a question or a comment? Join the conversation now. Participate in the live chat on YouTube, top right-hand corner of your screen if you're watching on a computer, and at the bottom of the YouTube app on your mobile device. Also, be sure to weigh in on Twitter. We love to hear you. We love to see your tweets. Be sure to tweet us at BlackProGen or use the hashtag BlackProGen. Don't forget also to set your reminders. Be sure to do that now. All you need to do is head to my YouTube page and click set reminder under the episode you're interested in, or simply subscribe to the channel and you'll get a reminder each and every time we go live. Are you tired of seeing Confederate flags, ships, flowers, and the wrong oil paintings as profile images for your ancestors and online trees? Well, Black Pro Gen Live is here to save the day. Download our new icons for online tree profiles today. We're adding new ones all the time, so if we miss something, be sure to let us know. And our panelist, Ellen Fernandez-Sacco, actually mentioned to me that she was able to use some of these recently, believe it or not, and it actually made happy that she was able to do that, on some of her online trees. So we would love to see these out there. We know that we're all using them, and we hope that the audience is using them as well. All right, enough of that. We've got a small crew here tonight, but hey, that doesn't mean that the content is lacking in any way, shape, or form. Let's go ahead and do our introductions. We'll start off with the northernmost beautiful lady. That will be Teresa Vega.
Hello, Teresa Vega, Radiant Roots, Bariqua Branches, representing Uptown, and just want you folks to know that tonight I'm keeping hope alive. We are living in treacherous and treasonous times, and I gotta I got to
Are you
keep hope
on an
alive.
elevator? You keep
Huh?
going up and down.
No, I
But are
moved
you
it.
an elevator? You keep going up and down.
Right. But you see the man, when we had nothing at all, our ancestors had hope. So I'm just representing the hope. Okay? Just go ahead and put that out.
Oh my gosh, Teresa's there. True Lewis is checking in.
Hi, True.
It's me, True Lewis from Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I am fresh off of Maggie. And I'm just glad to be here with Miss Vicky and Teresa. We're going to have a good time tonight. So, yay!
Yes, we have to introduce our esteemed guest for the evening. One of my genealogy aunties, one of all of our genealogy aunties, right? Who has earned her place because of her involvement with Afrogenius, which is, I mean, there really in some ways would not be the genre of African American genealogy research that we have today without Afrogenius. Let's just go ahead and put that out there, because even if you are not, involved with it, or you haven't been involved with it. Oh, did somebody just walk in the door? Hold on, wait a minute. I got to put my glasses on to make sure. Did somebody walk in the door?
Look.
Showing up in her she walked in like a queen. Like, look, the show is not gonna get started until I'm here. A queen in green tonight. Normally she got on red, but tonight she got on green. Angela Walter Raji coming from Maryland.
It is I. What can I say?
She's got the Maggie glow. Nonetheless, say hey, Angela, before I go into finishing my intro, Ms. Vicky.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said say hello before I finish my my intro of Miss Vicky.
Oh my gosh, Vicky Oh, okay, yes. This is Angela from Maryland. And welcome, Miss Vicky.
With two S's.
With two S's. Yes, Miss Vicky Davis. That's how I say it when I read it. I add the extra S. Vicky Daviss-Mitchell, as I was saying, as Angela made her grand entrance, we have to give her her entrance. I honestly don't feel like there would be a African American genealogy genre as we see it today without Afrogenius. A lot of folks just if they came on later than that, if they came in on the Facebook years, they don't realize how seminal and how important Afrogenius was, especially to new researchers. It really was the precursor to what you see in terms of groups on Facebook now. The way that people post queries, folks weigh in, they give assistance, XYZ. That really is how Afrogenius function. And thank you, Jesus, Afrogenius has transcended itself, or it has flown with wings, because it has ascended to Facebook. At the Afrogenius Facebook group, I bet you there are tons of people out there who have no clue that the Afrogenius Facebook group is actually the baby or the grandchild of the original Afrogenius.
Afrogenius is a mothership.
Is the mothership.
There you
yes,
go.
yes, it is. If you've been on the second floor or fourth floor of the National Museum and you saw the mothership, that is Afrogenius. And the babies would be Donald Glover. The Facebook groups are the equivalent of a Donald Glover, or any of these other folks. So nonetheless, I have to give you this amazing intro, because I want folks to realize that even if they do not know you personally, they know you and the work that you've done with Afrogenius. So without further ado, our special guest tonight is Vicky Daviss-Mitchell.
Can I clap for myself?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay. Like you were saying, Afrogenius to me is the mothership. And I was baptized on Afrogenius with Valencia Nelson King, along with Angela and a few other people in the chat room. And after I got in there, I stayed and did some volunteering. And then, like you said, we moved on over to Facebook. And we have, I don't know, maybe 20,000 people
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
well over 20,000. It's one of the larger genealogy, African American genealogy Facebook groups there
Mhm.
is. And I firmly believe that it's going to stay that because the foundation is there. It was already created where it was a natural environment for people to ask questions and, to just do what we do now in the genealogy world, in terms of just interacting with each other. So,
That's right.
so yeah, all right. Well, let's get into the subject matter tonight. We're talking about Texas. We're talking about Texas, right? Texas is in the news right now, right? For all the wrong reasons. Because of everything going on with immigration at the border, all this other
Mhm.
stuff, just crazy stuff going on in Texas in general. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, outside of the fact that me and Bernice's beloved sorority had our boule in Texas last
Mhm.
week, in Houston. Texas, I kind of feel like Texas is one of those areas that folks get so overwhelmed with because of the size, right? Landmass size, it's the largest state in the country. There's nothing that's going to beat Texas. If you've ever driven through it, please let me know in the chat room, tweet us because you'll understand the pain of driving directly through Texas. It takes you way too long. Um, but the thing is, even though it's quote unquote a newer state, right? It's not as old as Maryland or Virginia. It still has a lot of traction. So, the first question that I have for the evening with regard to Tejas is let's talk a little bit about the history of African American people in the state of Texas.
One thing that's notable, though, is like in 1836, just like the the stuff that's going on now in 1836, you had to get permission. African Americans had to get permission that had more than 1/8 amount of African in them to stay in the state of Texas.
Wait, let's go ahead and pause on that real quick.
Okay.
So she just said, I just want to make sure people are digesting this. She said that if you had 1/8, meaning that if you had one completely black great grandparent, you had to get permission to stay in the state of Texas
From Congress.
from Congress.
The
So
Republic of Texas.
the Republic of Texas. So to
Mhm.
me, that automatically means that means that records were generated.
Yeah. And just think just before the war, everybody was kicked out. There were free people of color.
Expulsion laws. Mhm.
Expulsion. Let's talk a little bit about expulsion laws because I think that's something that we don't often touch. Um, during our state specific episodes because we're dealing with states that have quote unquote traditional um
Mhm.
you know uh, environments for slavery, right? Either you're slavery or not. We talked a little bit about that in some maybe a few state specific episodes ago, but let's talk about expulsion laws because I don't think people realize that those are on the books, just like how we talked about just now that if you were 1/8 or the
Mhm.
equivalent of having one great grandparent that's completely black, right? Which visibly that may not be perceivable, right? If you're going on looks, if somebody
That's
has the
right.
rest, yeah, the other 7 great grandparents are completely
Mhm.
white and you've got one black or a combination, right? Maybe somebody's half, maybe somebody isn't. Um, how would the people know, right? Let's talk about expulsion because that's huge because that generates records.
How would people know? You
Hmm.
surely couldn't go by looks, like you said. And like in Texas, such a large place with people who own slaves knew their slaves. So,
Well, yeah, I think that to a certain extent, though, these things were based on looks. Otherwise, that
sure.
whole phenomenon that we know as passing never would have occurred. And in Arkansas, as an example, the Arkansas legislature passed the 1859 expulsion law. Well, people had to be out of the state by
Mhm.
January 1st or be sold, captured, gathered up, and put on the auction block.
That's right.
So if you knew and people knew that you were people of color, you knew you had to get out of Dodge, so to speak. And in a small community, if you were known, whether you were 1/8 or whatever, people knew who you were on the local level. And in many cases, there was no record that was generated. Okay, we're watching you, Mr. Toby over there. You got to be gone by such and such a date, or else I got a little extra cash. You may be working for me and owned by me. So that was not necessarily a record like Virginia that had free Negro registers. You had to register and prove that you were legally allowed to be there. And of course, Texas, which has a history going back to the 16th century or 17th century, whatever. Right. But I think on the local level, I don't think there were records. People knew that they had to leave. They moved.
I was gonna ask you.
Can we let Miss Vicki finish her point, please?
I was just gonna say I don't think I've ran across any records from Texas that there was a law in the book of how they were identified. I'll just put it like that.
Okay. So then naturally, if you could pass, you were passing, because otherwise you couldn't stay.
Right.
The question I had is this. In like the northern states, what would happen, let's say, if you had one ancestor who happened to be, it could be Native American or something else, would they qualify under this expulsion law?
I can't answer that one because, like I said, I haven't seen any expulsion laws except for them stating you had to be 1/8 or more to stay in Texas, and you had to get permission through Congress. You couldn't own any property or anything like that, and I don't know how property was dictated back then if they could prove that.
I wonder if anyone took them up on the offer to even bother to go through Congress. The nation was still young at that time. And so did anyone take up anyone on that offer? We're talking about a nation that was less than 50 years old. So it would be interesting, but it's suggesting, like Nika was saying, it's suggesting that one had one's genealogy, or that one had to go and conduct a genealogical study, which probably did not happen because public records weren't really, what we know as public records weren't available easily. So that's very interesting.
I think there was one particular guy, Samuel McCullough, in 1835. He was a free person of color, and he owned land. So I don't know if he, if he went through Congress or anything like that, because I haven't found any records of such. But I do know that he was a free person of color in Jackson County, I believe it was.
Interesting.
So I'm actually reading something online that says that there were several resolutions that were issued. In addition, one of them was issued June 5th, 1837, that says that the Texas Congress issued a decree allowing all free Blacks living in Texas before the independence of Texas to remain in Texas and free from harassment. So even if it swung back the other way, maybe some of the folks were grandfathered in. It was just after a certain point, new folks couldn't come because they didn't want them establishing havens, so to speak, for free people of color. So I would imagine this is definitely an interesting topic because there's a lot. Literally, I'm scrolling the number of joint acts that revolve around this. And I would imagine there are some folks in the chat room that are saying that they have ancestors that were born in the late 1830s and 1840s. And so I would imagine that the majority of folks that are there, unless they found them as free people of color, if you have not, then you just probably should assume that they were brought there enslaved.
Let's see, in 1837, the population was 38,000 people. 5,000 of those people were enslaved.
So that's perspective. That's definitely perspective. Wow. So what's crazy for me is that my Texas ancestry, they ain't Black.
They what?
They're not Black. My folks was white. Now my people came way after everybody, after the Civil War, really after Vietnam, or, maybe during Korea or the 50s or 60s. My folks, I mean, they did
Hey.
not hit Texas. And really, if we want to be truthful, really until like the 2000s, that's when really everybody hit Texas. But let's talk about some unique records that you can find in Texas, because we talked about, the fact that the average person, especially when we just talked about expulsion laws, getting grandfathered in, right? The average person is not looking at state legislature records. The average person doesn't even think to look at that kind of stuff. They think to look at the census. You know what I mean? Like, they're not thinking about things that had to go through, the legislative process. So what are some unique records that you can find that are unique specifically to Texas?
Let's see. They have, well, like everybody else, they had the slave record, the slave petitions, but that encompasses all several states back in from 1700 to 1967, I believe. But you can find records in there. They have church records. Let's see, slavery petitions. Let's see, what else do they have?
How about the is it the 1867 voter registration? It's not
The
unique.
voter rolls,
to
yeah.
It's not unique to people of color because it's for all voters, but you can still find your folks. I have found some of my Texas people on that particular document, which I'm very happy to see that.
And it tells you when they came into the county or the city or the state and how long they've been there. But if you look at them and where they came from. So if you found your person on the 1867, right over in the left-hand corner, it'll tell you they came from Georgia or Arkansas, how long they've been in the county. And most people that I research Harrison County, and most people that I found that are in Harrison County have been there 8 years in the state and 8 years or between 6 and 8 years in the county.
And this is This is 8 years from which date?
From the 1867 voter roll. And that was unique in itself because they've had different people that went out to register to vote, end up with the night riders coming through and maybe lynching them. They have lynch laws because they took the time to vote. Or register to vote.
So if you're seeing, in your experience, you see most people, it was within an 8-year time period, like they've been living in the state for 8 years. That kind of plays into what my experience has been with Texas, is that a lot of folks I've seen, my family's quote unquote deep South. I don't understand. It's the South. A lot of folks fled as the war was just starting. So, in several county parish histories that I look at, there were a lot of folks that left Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and in Texas around the time period that you're talking about. If 8 years prior to, this 1867 voters list would be about 1859, 1860. So you may find a slaveholder living in Mississippi, in the 1850 census, but then by 1860, these folks would be living in Texas. And a lot of that had to do, from my experience, a lot of it had to do with them trying to get away from the war.
That's right. That's why the slave owners came to Texas, to get away from the war. And they thought that they would be safe after, with their slaves and keeping their slaves. So, and if you were a free person of color, then you had to leave the state, or you were recaptured back then, say in Louisiana or someplace. You were recaptured and bought back as a slave.
I was going to add, my connection to Texas is primarily via the domestic slave trade. I have several lines out of Virginia, and a lot of folks ended up in Texas, East Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. But I'm going to go back. I recently found out within the past week that I had New Jersey ancestors who in 1818 were part of this illegal Van Wickle slave trade. And they were actually shipped from Perth Amboy to Norfolk to the Belize on the Mississippi, and then ended up in New Orleans. Some of those folks ended up in Louisiana on Avery Island, aka Petite Anse. And then if you go go to East Texas, some of them probably ended up there. So, if you have ancestry from Virginia or some of these other states, you have to consider that even way prior to the Civil War, people were being shipped. I know from just looking at a lot of my DNA cousins, I was like, wait a minute, I'm a Northern girl. I got 5 lines, but I was stuck in Virginia, not knowing how many people were sold south. So one of the records that we were able to look at was the slave manifest of the last slave ship out of New Jersey, the Schoharie. And one of the things, 2 years ago, I had a list of 77 individuals who left New Jersey. There were 4 ships out of New Jersey, and by the time my folks were shipped, the law had caught up to these folks. And believe it or not, they even had coffles in New Jersey that ended up in Pennsylvania, and they were caught. So that's what blew up the story. What was unique is it looks like out of the 48 names on this last ship, I was thinking maybe 1 or 2. And based on a full sequence mtDNA match, we know at least one of our cohorts, and this is the Malagasy haplogroup, ended up in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. I was not prepared that out of the 48 names, about a third are surnames that the folks were being brought from Bergen County, where our folks are, in Essex County. So now I'm doing the deep dig that I always tell people, you got to go back to local history and look. If I don't, I might not be able, because it's mtDNA, to tell exactly how all 48 are related or aren't related, but I'm going to do my best to do whatever I can to tell that story, because this idea that Northern slavery is somehow more benign is BS.
Well,
okay?
I something that I think we need to go back to based off of what you said, though, is, the nature of slavery within the continental United States is not going to be different than, you have the DeWolfs. They didn't necessarily have slaves here, but they had slaves in the Caribbean. You know what I mean? Just how there were different stopping off points. It wasn't necessarily that every ship came directly to the United States, that they stopped at different places. When you have an intercontinental trade, especially after the importation of slaves is banned from Africa, right? You're going to look, and that Congress mandates that manifest be created. Naturally, you're going to have people sent to different areas. Avery Island technically qualifies as St. Mary Parish, Louisiana, FYI, Teresa.
Okay.
So I would look for records there for that. But that's all still the Gulf Coast, which is also still part of Texas.
Around
part
Galveston,
of Texas.
right?
Yeah, Galveston, the Galveston area. Is part of the Gulf Coast, right? So that's something that you have to factor in. So let's talk about how Texas is organized. And I think that's one of the reasons why folks get so intimidated by Texas, is because of the number of counties. Talk about the number of counties in Texas.
260 counties. And the records vary in each county. Harrison County, I have more problems with Harrison County than I do, say, Grimes County, as far as record keeping is concerned. But out of 260 counties, you really have to, when you're researching, you have to really look at the 4 corners of where they touch. And a lot of them are small counties. So you might have 3 counties that's bordering, say, Grimes County on the top, and then 2 on the sides and 1 on the bottom. So you have to encompass all of those counties.
Well, and that speaks to, because we talk a lot about geography on this show and knowing where things take place. But since there are so many counties in Texas, you really can't say my family is from Hunt County. right? If they've been there for a number of generations, you really need to have the northern, the county just north, the county, east, the county south, and the county west. You need to be including all of those things within your search, and you have to be super keen on when the counties were created and the mother counties of the county that your family was living in. Because oftentimes I've seen this happen a lot to new researchers and even some experienced researchers too. They'll say, oh, I've looked, and they're looking for a county that didn't exist when the record set that they're searching took place, right? And so I think this is where that, counties and adjacent county search, especially on Ancestry, would really help folks and if you guys haven't seen that, when you're searching, just any record set, right? And you go in to put the location in, there's an area, and let me just choose census, and I'll just show people where this is at, because this applies everywhere. I just don't think that folks realize that they have the ability to do it. So let me just bring the screen open. So if you type in, we're going to type in Hunt County, Texas, right? Naturally, that pops up. But what you want to pay attention to is this bottom area right here. That gives you the ability. You're clicking Hunt County, and you see this spot that says exact to. Click that, and another box pops up. And it gives you the ability to search to exact to just that place, which would be Hunt County. Or you can click the county and adjacent counties. And this would be key in a large area like Texas, because if you've got a ton of counties, it could have been absorbed by one or the other, you're not sure dates, whatever, that would then allow you the ability to search the county that you put in and the adjacent ones that are right there. It gives you the ability to also do state and adjacent state and countries. So I just want to make sure that we point that out, especially since we're talking about a large landmass with 11 counties.
11.
So in terms of organization, right? In terms of counties, are you going to one clerk to look for information, or are you going to multiple clerks to look for stuff?
Multiple. Just like I was saying, I research Harrison County, and I have to go into Louisiana because where Harrison County is, Shreveport is only 30 miles away. And the majority of my ancestors went over to Shreveport to get married, and or buy land or whatever have you. So you have to look at both places. I got that book. Let's see, the one by the two ladies. What's the name of it?
The
No Land, Only Slaves. Okay,
yeah, so No Land, Only Slaves. Yeah,
I got the one for Harrison County, but now the next time I buy one, I'm going to get the Louisiana one, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas.
Yes,
to make sure.
Yeah, let's I want to make sure that I bring that up for people, because some folks may not be aware of what that is. There is a book that covers several different counties across Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas, called No Land, Only Slaves, and it details transactions where there's no land involved, only slaves. And there are several volumes of this book. I'm trying to think, where do they even sell them now? Because
well, they have a Facebook page. Okay. And I know one of the ladies just recently passed that was responsible for going to all these counties and getting the information. But they have a Facebook page, and you can order from there.
Okay. And I'm loading that in now, so people have access to that. And let's see, No Land, Only Slaves. Yes, she actually, one of the women just died in Texas. Yeah, she just died literally a month ago. And I'm looking at their Facebook page. I'll share this in the live chat.
And it's well worth it because you can go in and find the exact location that that particular person is in the courthouse.
What other information do they include within the book as well? Just since we're talking about this, because I don't think we've ever brought this book up, or we haven't in a while.
Okay, well, it contains wills. It contains who bought a certain person and where they come from. It gives counties and states. Let's see. It gives, well, this one here has mostly research for the book number, who the person was who owned the slaves, and where it can be found. The clerk, the children's names listed, and so on and so on, the ages and things like that.
So why, and for the Zennials and Millennials, why in the world is this something that we want to look at? Why in the world would we go back to a book? Why would we even buy a hard copy book?
Well,
what is this doing for us?
I bought a hard copy book because I could not get to Texas when I wanted to. And I had a person that lived there. And when I bought this book, I got the information out of the book, and they went over to the courthouse to look for, you know, my relatives in that particular vein. Now I research spans, and my span is from South Carolina. And I found out that he had a son that was in Harrison County. So I went in and found out exactly where he was, who he owned, and who bought the property. And who bought the property after the first person bought it. So I was able to get that information.
You were able to get a shortcut, because otherwise you would have had to gone on site to go and search out that information. But in this instance, these beautiful women, thank you, Jesus, for especially the woman that just passed away, God rest her soul.
Yes.
They went through these courthouses and did this particular type of research for you. And here's where that's also beneficial, is because when you're looking, remember, things could be indexed 5 times, the name could be 3 different ways or 2 different ways. So it may be that one of these archaic sources may be where you get the right information, right? Or you may not have found it any other way. So that would be the benefit of, yes, go ahead, spend that money, get the book.
But it was worth it. It was worth it because I could sit like I am now in my PJs and look through all this stuff, write it down, and have somebody go and look and get it for me if they choose. But I'd rather go myself. You know, I'd rather go to the courthouse myself because it's important that people go to their area research.
Now, what do you offhand know of any, specific damage to courthouses? I've been doing some research recently in South Carolina, in Chesterfield County. It's like they ain't got nothing before the Civil War because it just was burnt up to a crisp. There weren't any situations like that you know of, like in terms of Civil War stuff. It may have been like a fire or something afterwards, but that would be something that people would need to check on a case-by-case basis in Texas.
What I did was went and researched, like in Grimes County, I researched the area and found out that they had 3 or 4 different fires over the course of time. And after rebuilding whatever they could save, they put in a different place. So there is a record of burned courthouses, but you have to research in that area or in that county to find out, when it burned or the circumstances and things like that.
Okay. And no land only slaves only revolves around Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas, right? Those are the only 3 states that I know of that it revolves around. Or is it larger than that?
Let's see what they got here. As for when I bought this book, I think that volume 1 is Bossier Parish, that's in Louisiana. 2 is Claiborne Parish. Volume 3 is Caddo. 4 is Harrison, Hunt, and Kaufman County. Volume 5 is DeSoto Parish in Louisiana. Lafayette County in Arkansas. And volume 7 is Panola and Grayson counties in Texas, and then volume 8 is how do you pronounce that? Bienville?
Yeah,
Parish in
Bienville.
Louisiana. And from what I understand, they do have a volume 9, but I don't know what that consists of.
And I just realized I need to get the Lafayette County because that's where my folks were. It's right by Texarkana.
Texarkana, Arkansas?
Texarkana,
Texas.
Texas. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Texarkana. They lived in Louisville or Lafayette County, Arkansas. That's where they were enslaved for about 7 years or so. All right, so let's talk about critical record sets or your hidden gems when it comes to Texas, right? Everybody knows, and if you don't know, please, I hope you do if you're watching this, that you can get to all the Texas record sets on the larger sites by drilling down to Texas. I think a lot of folks may sound remedial to some of the folks that are watching, but people may not know that you can just drill down to Texas records on the major search sites. Folks just normally put in a name, on the main page, and they want everything to come out all flowery. When you've been researching, go ahead, Miss Vicky. Go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of drilling down, the Texas Railroad Commission was started in 1891, but if you have land that has oil or anything like that, Texas Railroad Commission has those records.
So why would the Railroad Commission have oil stuff?
That's where everything is stationed at. And the only reason why I found that out is someone, my great grandfather had 100 and something acres of land. And someone went through there and cut off all the timber. It looked like a storm went through there.
Wow.
And one of the fellows at the courthouse told me, he said, go to the Texas Railroad Commission in Austin, and they can tell you who exactly sold timber from that area at that particular time. Because in order for them to sell it, they have to go through the Texas Railroad Commission. And whoever buys it, they have to let those people know. So they're governed by that particular commission.
Did that have something to do with the transporting of that timber?
It could be, and also
and
oil.
The railroad was the transportation,
and oil and oil production too.
Wow! So I actually just pulled the website up, just as you were talking about it, and there is a whole oil and gas section of the Texas Railroad Commission. It says the Railroad Commission, through its oil and gas division, regulates the exploration, production, and transportation of oil and natural gas in Texas. And so clearly, you can probably do a Freedom of Information request, or whatever. Look, they have an oil and gas forms library. There's a whole bunch of different things. When you hear oil, you don't typically, think of the railroad. But I guess Texas said, forget. Right, forget it. So that's a great resource. What are some other ones? Before we get into that, this is what I was actually talking about. Folks typically, when they go to a site like Ancestry, they're going to go to this main page, right? They're going here.
Okay.
They're not, okay. They don't realize that you can go to all collections, and that maybe the person comes here. They say, okay, I'll search from here. Well, scroll down to the bottom of the page. Okay, click Texas just to see what's out there, right? That'll drill your records down to just Texas specific stuff. I don't know why this connection is taking forever, and it's probably because I'm sitting here doing it now. But you want to drill down to your specific state. That gets you to your specific state, specific stuff. And I'll come back whenever this decides it wants to load because it's being real finicky.
I don't know whether or not GenWeb is back online yet, because they had somebody hack that site. Yes. But the last time I looked, they were almost ready to go online, but they have a lot of resources there.
US Gen, she's talking US GenWeb, which became got under the ownership of Ancestry.
Right?
Yeah, yes, US GenWeb and RootsWeb, all of that was, well, RootsWeb in particular became a part of the ancestry world, and it went through a severe hack
Right.
last year, and it's taken them a long time to get it back up to speed. And I think part of the reason why that happened is because it was under old infrastructure, and they just kind of took over it, and they had to basically come in and recreate everything. So they are I believe they are almost done with adding everything back. Finally, my screen loads so I can kind of go through and show everybody. So once you click the actual state, it will get you to your collections that are just for that state. So, as we're talking about things tonight, there may be things on here that you may not have even thought to even look through for your particular ancestors. And this is just, this is just advice for any state that you have that is on Ancestry. Come through and look to see what there is available. And even if it has a label with multiple states, like this one for the Confederate pensions, or border crossings, naturalizations, whatever it is, right? Even if it's multiple states, or maybe if it's just one county. Look at this. Eastland, Texas, they've got county records from 1868 to 1949, over 300,000 records. Whatever they are, right? Take a look at them. The Texas Wills and Probates is not that big. It only has 100,000 records, but here's where FamilySearch maybe can come into play with that. Whoops, I didn't want to go to Family Tree DNA. I wanted to go to FamilySearch. Right? Be sure. Oh, they're experiencing technical difficulties. Ha, isn't this funny?
FamilySearch.
Yeah, FamilySearch. So let's say you said Grimes County. Okay, because I always tell people don't just go to search. Come up here and go to search and go to catalog and see what's there, and if it's already been scanned. And you want to see look here, they've got the year was organized. Remember, it was out of Montgomery County. County records were destroyed by fire in 1848. That means if you're looking for anything before then, you need to look around, right? So they've got land and property, they've got maps, they've got deed records here. Now they're locked down with a key. That means you've got to be at a family history center to view them.
That's right.
But that means that they're scanned. So you've got these available online. So whereas, we came over here and the wills and probate records are kind of slim pickings here on Ancestry, you can go to a FamilySearch center and look at deed records, which would capture the enslaved, or you can come over to probates and they have probate records. What are some other critical records that you talked about? GenWeb, US GenWeb.
The marriage records. Marriage records were at GenWeb that I found some that I didn't see on Ancestry, so I put them in my folder. And let's see, Family Tree. No, Texas Portal. The portal to Texas has gobs and gobs of records.
Okay, let me go ahead and pull that up so people can see that. Because remember, we like to go off the beaten path. Somebody's doorbell.
That's Mariah.
Okay, I'm trying to pull
Excuse me for going off the beaten path.
No. That's
what.
Yeah, no, that's what we need. So let me come back over here because my Google Chrome seems to be acting a little bit better than Safari for some reason. It's not being my friend today. Okay, so I'm going to pull up so what are some specific things that you use? You mentioned for Texas Portal of Texas History.
They have maps. Are you talking about in the portal?
Yeah, like what are some key things that they've got there?
Okay, they've got maps, county maps. They've got obituaries in certain areas. They've got school records, yearbooks, newspapers from mostly all the counties in Texas.
Okay.
They've got a humongous amount of records there.
Okay, so I've got it up now. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at the Texas Portal of History. True, be sure to share this in the chat room if you can. If not, let me know. So this is the main site. 1,080,375 items that they have on this site. They've got about the portal. It's actually hosted, it looks like, by not sure what UNT is. What organization is that, or what college is that?
Yeah, that's University of North Texas in
Okay.
Denton.
University. Look at this Texas Digital Newspaper Program. They've got Rescuing Texas, resources for educators. Looks like there's a lot of stuff on this particular site. Yeah, looks like there's a ton of stuff. So
I found a 1903 image picture of my great-great-grandfather on that site.
Oh, let's get the name.
That's good.
What's the name?
On you mean the name that I found, my grandfather?
Yeah.
He was a tailor, Joseph Taylor. That's Mariah's son.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Just can't find her.
Look at this. Will of Joseph. Oh, I probably should have used quotation marks. Otherwise, we're going to get. Oh, whoops. Okay.
Look how many collections they have. What is that?
Yeah.
400 or something collections.
Yeah, and I'm like, goodness gracious. Newspapers, tech. Look at this. Goodness gracious. Oh man. Okay, I didn't even realize there's all this stuff here.
And you have to just work your way around, and just go for it.
What they got? They have an LGBT collection. Look at this.
That's rather new. They didn't have that before, but it's rather new coming in.
Wow, they've got a whole wow. AIDS Memorial. So this is really interesting, you all.
How far back do the records go? Just all records?
Yeah, whatever they have, just like the University of North Texas, whatever records that they can allow them to use, they'll use them.
Look at this, yearbooks. I don't feel like enough people use yearbooks.
No,
I don't either.
They are an amazing resource. Look at this. They even got one for 2001 for this particular school.
I use them a lot in Pennsylvania. They tell a lot about my family up in those little counties.
Wow. All right. So there's a lot. There's a lot here. Let's see. Wow. There's quite a bit. Okay. So there's another one that you mentioned. Is it Information Wanted?
Yes.
Okay. Let me pull that one up. Now, what is this?
That is a web. Look at Angela. I think I shared with Angela that I was searching, looking around for people that I might know in the area that I'm searching. They're newspaper ads that the ancestors put out after slavery, looking for their people. One night I was sitting up in my pajamas, just reading every one of the ads for Texas. And I think about 3:00 in the morning, I said, well, let me close. Then my brain wouldn't let me. So the next record that I popped on was my great uncle looking for his two sisters. And he was going to pay $20 for any information to find them. In that one newspaper ad, I found the name of my great-great-grandmother. Listed in there was my great-great-grandfather, my great-great-great-grandmother, her name, which was Elizabeth Steed. And all I knew before was Hubbard and Elizabeth. But come to find out, his real name was Hubert and Elizabeth Steed. And they had my great-grandfather, Jacob, and the uncle that was put in the ad, and plus two sisters I never knew about, plus the owner of the two girls.
Amen belongs right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what you said, let me go ahead and show people the site because this is getting
Mhm.
bookmarked.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so here it is. This is informationwanted.org. And they have the ability to contribute an item, so please be sure to do that. And they've got a map, Angela, for all the ads.
Hey.
Um,
Hey.
Yeah,
And
it says last seen in this basically its last scene offers genealogists and researchers a new tool for telling family stories of separation and survival during slavery, emancipation, and Civil War. The site offers easy access to thousands of quote information wanted advertisements taken out by former slaves searching for long lost family members. The ads taken out in Black newspapers mention family members often by name and also by physical description, last seen locations, and at times by the name of the former master. So you can help by transcribing ads. Look at that. So we want everyone to go on and sign up, right? Use a little Google form and say that you want to sign up, ask somebody to help transcribe. But we're going to browse some of the collections here. So you've
just
got
put
100.
in Texas. Put in Texas.
Okay. Let's see.
Since that's our site right now.
Yeah.
I thought I saw Mariah's children's.
It's our topic.
Yeah. So just going through Galveston, you've got a couple of different ads. Let's look at William Woods searching for his mother. William Woods wrote a letter to the D.C. Chief of Police in search of his mother, Mrs. Flora Woods. Woods served in the Navy from 1872 to 1878, and it was in the Evening Star in Washington, D.C. Coverage, Galveston, Texas, D.C. And it says, searching for his mother, Inspector Boardman received today a letter from William Woods Colored of Galveston, Texas, asking for information as to the whereabouts of his mother, Mrs. Flora Woods. The writer states that he served in the Navy from 1872 to 1878. The letter was addressed Chief of Police, Capitol Hill, Navy Yard, Washington, D.C. And here's the file that is associated with it. And you can download it.
Newspaper ad.
Yeah, and they've got the citation and everything here. Wow. So Last Seen is a project of the Department of History at Villanova University in collaboration with Mother Bethel AME Church.
Mother Bethel. Yeah.
And it tells you what ad it was placed into also, those ads.
Wow. And I just clicked Galveston just as a location. But look at all these Texas counties. You've got Washington County, right? We've got Austin, Texas. You can click those and you've got the different things that were instituted here. We may actually want to consider trying to see if we can help with this, guys. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think that's very important. Yes, I would agree.
And again, I want to emphasize, if you have any roots in Virginia, consider that out of Virginia alone, out of Richmond, Choco Bottoms, you're talking about over 400,000 folks were enslaved and shipped south. So if you have ancestors in Virginia that trace back to Virginia, or you want to start looking there, because that whole Richmond area, it was a major slave trading depot.
In fact, let's see, Edwin Nelms was a slave owner in Virginia. I can't remember the county. Selma was supposed to look it up for me. But he transported his slaves back in 1826 to Texas.
Wow. So the next thing you have on your list is the graphic history of Negro Dallas.
That's just a site that I have that has a little bit of information about Dallas, Texas. And I haven't been through the majority of it, but it has a lot of input in there. So that's a good site to look at.
Wow. I'm looking at these images and I really want to do this album justice. Let's see. Okay, so it's 17 meg, so it should be okay with downloading. Yeah, I wanna do it justice because some of these pictures are amazing, you guys.
Yes.
My goodness. Someone said Richmond, Virginia, and that's exactly what Teresa was talking about, was Richmond, Virginia. So let me go ahead and get to my download so I can show you all this amazing album.
They're housed at SMU. Southern Methodist University too.
So these actual photos are housed at SMU, and this is how the little album starts out. And this is Graphic History of Negro Dallas, compiled by Priscilla Art Club, 1932. Look at these pictures, you guys.
Wow.
Old families.
Wow, that's great.
Look at her left, Mr. and Mrs. Morrow. Her with satin. You could not tell her a thing, girl.
Right?
And Mrs. Sutton there on the right, and Mr. and Mrs. William Horton. He's in his coveralls, look like they just got him out the field to come and take a picture with his wife. Mr. J.E. Boyd and Mr. and Mrs. Fuqua.
Oh Lord, he looked like Cujo a little bit.
He do look like Cujo
Lewis.
He does look like Cujo Lewis. Wow, look at these, you guys. Look at these pictures.
Oh wow, look at those. Max.
You see the priests. Look at these. Wow. And this is literally 37 pages of photos. So if you've got old roots in Dallas, you may want to check it out. And look, they even took pictures of the houses. Blewett Wind,
Starks. I'm interested in Starks because I have some cousins, DNA cousins that are Starks.
Look at that.
I
mean, somebody was so thoughtful. Thank you, whoever did this. Mason, Rowan, Leach, Burson. Look at these homes, especially for our folks. I mean, come on now. Look at that screened-in porch right there. That's a mint julep. Something was going on over there.
You know, people when they moved in, other people moved out. They got
buddy.
Nice houses.
Holum, Thompson, Frazier, Harley, business section, Pythian Temple, Angela.
Where's James when you need him? I was going to say, where's James?
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
Look at that truck.
Right in the front.
Moving up a little bit. Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Wow.
The Oddfellows.
The Oddfellows.
Oh, James, we got to star this for him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we are only 9 pages into 37 of these amazing photos of Black Dallas.
We got us win an eye.
Yeah, just imagine. I mean, if you've got family or something, I hope somebody finds us talking about this and sees this. And, just going back in time, this is actually, look at this, People's Undertaking right here at the bottom.
Yeah.
They've got the Undertaker right here.
Hey, they were important.
Yeah, they sure were.
And I believe that People's was the undertaking people that took care of one of my great uncles that lived in my Dickerson relative that lived in Dallas.
That's
wow.
amazing.
So someone's asking about the Sanders. We don't know anything about them. Utilize that link. We just know that they're in this album. So utilize that link that we put inside the chat. And click on that to look a little bit more because for this you want to be mindful. So what I did was I downloaded the full album just so it would display better on video. But what you all are really wanting to pay attention to is this page right here that we sent out to you from SMU that gives you the description, who created it, the years, where it took place. It says the photo album contains 124 images compiled by the Priscilla Art Club from 1932 to 1941. Photographs depict people, homes, businesses, churches, schools, and activities related to Dallas's African-American community in the areas of Old East Dallas, Deep Ellum, and Oak Lawn. And I will tell you right now that Oak Lawn is still Black, but Deep Ellum is considered the arts district now in Dallas. It has been countrified and gentrified. Sections of the album are labeled Old Families, Homes of Old Families, Business Section, Churches, Schools, Educational Recreation Centers, Artists and Their Work, Priscilla Section, Homes, Members, Minstrel Group, and 30th Anniversary, 1941. And so they've got all the specs here. So check that out. Make sure that you guys do that. And this is, I love this. I'm a photo person, y'all know, so I'm gonna be looking at that all night long. Just because it's just.
See, I thought about you when I figured that one out.
Yes, you were speaking my language. You were speaking my language. All right, so then we've got US GenNet. Um, let's see. Oh, goodness. And so this is about the burial places of executed people in Texas.
Right.
Ooh, she hitting us with the gusto tonight, y'all.
And you have to look at that. You have to look at that.
Yes, you sure do. So let me go ahead and share this in the window. My. I told her, I said, off the wall, we don't
The
want nothing that's
executed.
canned. And of course, the website ain't all you want it to be, y'all. Now stop, because people will stop if the appearances ain't, if the stuff ain't flying at the face. But you can click a letter over here, and it details the burial locations of people who were murdered as a part of, basically, well, were executed by the state of Texas. And
the method of execution.
The method, lethal injection, electrocuted. They even have a lynching photo of a person who was wow. And this looks like this includes more than just Texas, because this person is Oklahoma. Yeah.
What's his surname there? I need to see that. Oh,
Joe
okay.
Allen. It looks like date of death April 19th, 1909, was lynched. Yeah, so they've got a number of different things here. Don't ever rule out that somebody in your family was executed, or what happened. It looks like it even goes to current times, which is, I saw something from 2001 and 1999. So that's something also to keep in mind.
Oral history says that I had one of my grandparents and his brother-in-law were both hung, and I went looking at that site. That's how I happened to get that site, to see if they were electrocuted or hung or whatever, for voting. For voting.
Find a vote.
Wow. Well, people don't realize, especially nowadays, what the price was that was paid for that kind of stuff.
That's right.
So
that's right.
There's another resource that you have, and after we touch on this one, I'm going to go to FamilySearch, and just literally, it is just a scroll fest 2018 on what they have for Texas. I kind of feel like if you have Texas ancestors, you can't talk about not having nothing. I don't want to hear it, because, like, seriously, I feel like I don't even want to hear it when it comes to Texas, because Mississippi researchers, go ahead and let the chat room know what we deal with, because it is dry when it comes to Mississippi. Texas is, you could just really trace somebody's entire tree based off of vital records in the census alone in Texas, and the record sets that are available. The last thing she has, and this is something that, this is a site I use a lot. I love it. I don't feel like enough people know about it, is the Race and Slavery Petitions Project. This is just, oh my gosh, what could I even say about it? Established in 91, Race and Slavery Petitions Project was designed to locate, collect, organize, and publish all extant legislative petitions relevant to slavery, and a selected group of county court petitions from 15 former slaveholding states and the District of Columbia during the period from the American Revolution through the Civil War. Between 91 and 95, the project director and editor Lawrence Swiniger traveled across the South to photocopy and microfilm petitions meeting that criterion. And they've got records in Texas here, but they also have got records for other states. So I'll blow this up, because I can hear Angela saying, I can't read it. Where is it? I can't see.
I use that site a lot. So
I'll use this site a lot. I know. I love it. I love it.
It's great. It's great.
So if you have not been using this, I need you to get on board. Compilation. They've got 17,487 petitions that are on this site from all of these different states, including Texas. For a total, Texas has a total of 416 within this particular site. Granted, it's not as robust as maybe Louisiana or maybe even Mississippi in this aspect, or even North Carolina, but there are still records for Texas that are recorded here. So if you are not using this, you need to get on board and go ahead and use that.
Nika, I wanted to also add that project that was used to create that site, they went across multiple states, as you can see. I think it was David Patterson. I know Vicki and I know David. He indicated in one of his discussions about this site. Apparently, they wanted to get a cross section of multiple states. They have tapped maybe 10% of what is there. What you can show people as you're about to do with FamilySearch, when you tool down and kind of go deep into that catalog and go into the vault, so to speak, in terms of their holdings, a lot of the data taken to form that particular site, a lot of stuff that never, ever, ever got and made it to that site is found in those reels of microfilm. And so there's a lot more. That site is just enough to whet your appetite. Trust me, it will. But there's, oh my God. And the FamilySearch site is taking you sort of deeper into what can be found. So it's wonderful.
Exactly. So that particular race and petition site basically gives you the breadcrumb. FamilySearch supplements it gives you the rest of the loaf of bread or the rest of the piece of the bread. Don't just stop. This is we talk about this a lot. Don't just stop at the index. You want the actual document because it's going to provide you more context. It's going to provide you more stuff. And so that's what it is. It's in essence, it's an index. It's a good index, but it is an index. Scrolling down, there are 49 different collections on FamilySearch for Texas, starting with 2 million plus birth certificates from 1903 to 1935. They've got the birth index with 17 million records in that. And there's actually a way to go get around that and get to current births, but I'm not going to share that because I don't want y'all having my special sauce. There's a way to get into the 2000s. I ain't gonna tell you how, but there is a way.
I'll call you later.
Texas deaths, you've got actual certificates from 1890, 1976. Divorces, marriages, naturalizations, probate records. You name it. It's just a litany of different Texas records here. You just, like I said, you guys cannot complain. I don't want to hear a darn word about Texas and I having stuff after this episode. Anything else that we're not, that we forgot, maybe?
I wanted to just mention the Institute of Texas Culture out of San Antonio. They have a lot of things, a lot of collections. The Institute of Texas Culture, I think it's, what is it? Texan, it's a funny,
Texan Cultures. Yeah, I found it.
Yes,
I found it. Yeah.
Exactly. And they have a number of things that are there. And it's out of the University of Texas, San Antonio runs that site. And it's really pretty wonderful for those who have a strong interest in West Texas and those communities west of San Antonio, particularly if you have an interest of the communities around Del Rio, El Paso, Brackettville, and the communities that were sort of the really sort of the bicultural communities of Black, Mexican, Texan people who settled around Fort Clark, Seminole Negro Indian Scouts who settled there in Del Rio and Brackettville, which they have a tremendously rich history and culture. And it's their records are part of the Indian Scout records at the National Archives, but part of the 19th century military records. Tremendous holding. And I just wanted to mention that.
We also did not talk about freedmen going to Texas and being taken to Texas. We didn't even hit on that, Angela.
I know.
And the number of freedmen who were taken from the Indian Territory during the war, even beforehand.
The Civil War, yes. They weren't freedmen at the time. They were enslaved.
They were just slaves.
And so they weren't freed at the time. And we're talking about people, particularly, well, even from as far north as the Cherokee Nation. This is somebody with paper. Anyway, the Cherokee Nation, many of whom were Confederate sympathizers, if they were not actively involved in the war itself, they themselves would take their slaves into Texas. And some allowed them to return to the territory with them. Others, they just you know, okay, you're free. We're going back home. You can get home any kind of way you want to. And you'll see that come up in a lot of records and a lot of freedmen interviews. They were left abandoned in Texas during the war. And of course, it was a destination for slaveholders in other states also to take their enslaved people to Texas, hopefully to get out of the way and to not get any ideas about freedom. So that did happen.
And if you recall, when we did the California episode, we talked about Biddy Mason and how her slaveholder had brought her to California, and she was there long enough for her to be emancipated because she was there longer than a year, and how he was basically trying to smuggle them out of California into Texas. So it seems like almost like, well, Texas was the Wild West. Texas was the Wild West for slavery. Something else that was brought up in the chat room, great resource as well. They have general land offices in every state. But someone brought up the Texas General Land Office and the records that are available there in the archive collections. This is something to look out for. Advertisements for land and leases on coming to market, public lands. Alice, looks like this is it's a lot of different little hodgepodges of different stuff. Registers of families. Gosh, you can just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. For this particular thing, if you go to the history tab, there are collections, there's a map store, you can look at land grants, there's a surname index here for a grantee and a patentee. So these are general land office, these are land grants, which just kind of falls under the Bureau of Land Management, but this is Texas's specific site. And this seems very similar to the one that the Louisiana State Land Office has, where they have the historical records there as well. It also lists grantees for Spanish and Mexican land grants filled within their Spanish collection. So if you're looking to go back that far, they do have some of that stuff available as well. Of course, and people, whenever we do these state-specific episodes, folks like, well, what about this does not absolve you from searching the regular stuff. You're still going to look at federal records. You're still going to look at newspapers. You're still going to do all that stuff. These are just the things that people don't necessarily think to look for initially. So this does not absolve any or not, cancel out any other previous BlackProGen Live episode where we told you to look at maps, or we told you to look at the slave narratives, or we told you to look at whatever it is, right? You want to combine all that together with this Texas specific thing. And if your family is in East Texas, you really need to be looking at Louisiana and Arkansas research as well, or that ArcTex law area. Oh yeah, ArcLaTex or whatever. You wanna make sure that you also look. We already have an episode on Louisiana. We already have an episode on Arkansas, right? So you want to combine those two episodes with this particular one, especially if you have folks that were born in those states and you find them in Texas, but you can't reconcile how they got there. You're not sure. Look into those particular things. Is there anything else you all can think of off the top of your head? Because, this, like I said, this doesn't absolve you from looking at other stuff or, the other advice that we've given you over time.
You got to dig deep. You got to dig deep. That's what we're talking about.
One thing that I started doing, Nika, was whenever I talk to somebody that's going to a family reunion or a church reunion, church homecoming, I've asked them to bring me a copy of their record. In that way, I can thumb through it and find out whether or not one of my relatives helped start the church or was a member of that church. So right now I've got about 10 different homecoming papers. So that's very important.
That's good.
We can't hear you, Nika.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand. I'm like, did we talk about? I think we have an episode for schools later, which naturally, in some ways, folds in churches because that's the institution that really provided the educational experience for African Americans, especially coming out of the Civil War. And I know we've got one for fraternal organizations and stuff like that. But we may need an episode just on churches. Like just on what you can find on churches.
Mhm.
If panelists put that on in the ballot box thread.
Yes.
Somebody go ahead and put that so I don't forget.
Church anniversaries.
Yeah, the church anniversary. In fact, when I just went to a funeral maybe a couple months ago, they have a little history up on the wall, and someone said, "Oh, did you see your uncle over there?" I said, "I can't miss that meathead anywhere. I know that head anywhere." I mean, it was just a blob of the photo, but I knew it was Joseph. You couldn't deny it was Joseph because they all got that head. So, anywho, thank you so much, Ms. Vicky, for your help, expertise, needle in a haystack, resources. I think some folks are gonna be excited to get through some of these things tonight, and yeah, thank you so much for helping us. So, feel free to stay along for Ask Mariah. You don't have to. But I just like to give our guests an out just in case they may not want to. So, all right, everybody.
Do I stay back here or do I go in the front? Or
no, you just stay there.
You can just stay
right
there
where you are.
You can stay right where you are.
Thanks a lot for the invite. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody, here's your favorite time of the night. This is time for Ask Mariah, the part of the show where you, the viewer, submit your questions, queries, conundrums, and more to the panel, and we weigh in live with research help specifically geared towards you. Panelists never see the queries beforehand, so you get a chance to see us work together live and help our Genie buds get past their brick walls. And in some ways, we're almost replicating Afrogenius, the old school way, where somebody would just come and say, "I don't know who my mama is," and people would say, "Well, where's your mama born?" It'd be a thread of 72 messages until we actually got to the real center part of whatever the person was asking. All right, so our Ask Mariah for the evening is Sabrina Jameson. Where is Charles Ellison in 1870? I can only find him in the 1880 census. I've taken Ancestry DNA. I can't go any further on my genealogy until I find him in 1870. I've been looking for 20 years. Can't find him. I want my family to know who their folks are. And panel, there is no other slide. That's it.
That's it?
Oh, wait a minute.
Okay.
So we are looking for a mystery man named Charles Ellison, an invisible man in 1870.
Yeah, wait a minute, but what state?
It's Ralph, baby boy.
Wait a minute. I've got to, because I'm presenting to everybody right now, I've got to come off so they can see the panelist's face.
Like, I was just trying to look. Oh, wait. Oh, what am I saying that?
True issue to ooh-wee.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. So the chat room was like, was he in Texas? Like, people are trying Oh my gosh. We don't know the state. I love this. I love it. And you know what? We got to make room for people that ask these questions. I constantly hammer this home because not everybody is at an intermediate to advanced level of genealogy, right? Even if you've been doing this for 20 years, we all still need to be able to formulate our questions and our queries.
I just want to see how many Charles Ellisons there are in the United States.
She already know Teresa was on searching. Keep searching, baby. Let me give a disclaimer out. Okay. Even if you've been researching for a very long time, right? You still have to learn how to formulate your query so you can get the most information. Even if Sabrina reached out to us as for consultation, right, or for coaching, we would still naturally go back to her with the same questions. So I don't think there's anything wrong with her not listing a state or anything like that. This is a learning opportunity for everybody, because think about this. When a person comes to Maggie, brick wall night, and they are looking for, that's why True started laughing, because she knows where I'm going with this. And they start asking, oh, I can't find Charles Ellison. Moses, aka Shelley, is going to come out, / Moses' staff, aka Angela, is going to come out and say, well, where is it? What's his birthday? What's his timeline? How old was he? Who was the daddy? Who was that? Right?
Yes.
Which the panel is going to do the same exact thing. So right now, number one, we just have a name. We just have Charles Ellison, right? There are a lot of people who have this situation where they just have a name. Now, she says she's found him in 1880. We don't know where. And it really doesn't matter. How? Angela, guess what?
I know, because I'm just curious to see how many people we're trying to figure out from.
But
Well,
I remember when I was there, and now I'm on the inside of it doing the same thing. Like, what are you talking about? So what? No, what's next? You know?
See, because she's asking Moses's question, which is so what, right?
okay.
So she has found him in 1880. She is clear that she's got the right person in 1880, but her roadblock is that she could not find him in 1870. And so here's the opportunity for us, especially in this situation, right? Because we don't care about the location. Location doesn't matter. It's how do you get back to 1870 when you have folks that are in 1880? Literally, prime example, I was working on a case for a client this week where I got to figure out a nice diplomatic way to say, but the tied behind a numerator in 1870 for the whole county only put an initial for the first name.
I've seen that.
And a surname for the last name.
Mhm.
So how do you know that you have the right people?
You don't.
If it's just A. Walton.
You don't know.
As in not A. Walton, but A. Walton.
No, I know what you mean. A period Walton.
A period Walton. So when people are having, Shelley says there are 3,479 Charles Ellisons in the 1880 census.
How
So
about
clearly
I'm glad you asked me to stay.
Because Charles be in here giggling. But it's true. So Karen Galloway is correct. Context clues, right? You're looking at every column on that 1880 census. Gender, marital status, age, where they were born, right? Are they infirm, right? Can they read or write? Are they a male over the age of XYZ? I think that one is still on 1880. Whatever, all you need to get a blank census form in 1880 so that you can read all of those columns that are at the top of that form so you are clear. One of the tactics that I use for if I can't find somebody in 1870 is I look for the neighbors, look for the people who are living around Charles, your particular Charles Ellison, and try to find those folks in the 1870 census. This is assuming that folks did not move, but typically it can work. Sometimes Ellison might be Allison. It may be a different iteration of the name. The next tactic that I think Shelley and we all have done this. I mean, granted, if it's a large area, it's going to suck for you, but look for all the Charleses that are born in a certain year in a certain location in a particular county or parish, or even a particular enumeration district, and then rule out the different ones that could not be that particular person.
Why didn't you do Ancestry DNA? Because I like haystack, needle in a haystack. No, why not cut it?
The reason why that's on there is that's one of the questions we asked is, has a person taken DNA?
Mm-hmm.
She didn't just throw that out there.
So she has taken Ancestry DNA. So my question would be, has she looked at her highest matches? Has she gone to her, if it's on Ancestry, found family trees that listed in Ellison or anything, something to break it down?
Yeah, that's a good thing, but she's got to isolate her Ellison and cousins, right? If you watch the Family Tree DNA Project webinar that I gave on legacy, I talked about choosing proxy people in your family, choosing people in your family to stand in the position of your ancestors. So, you want a particular person who is going to reflect your relationship.
No, I get that, but I was wondering if any of her Ancestry DNA matches, high matches, had any Ellisons on a tree to provide any sorts of clues.
True, that's right. You're correct. But how do you know which side of the family they're matching you on unless you know a relation that you trace the genealogy for and they connect with you as a shared match to those other matches that you are not familiar with? She still needs those other family members tested.
Oh, yeah.
So she can direct the research.
Correct.
So Karen gives that's another suggestion. Flip the name to Ellison Charles. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think doing a wildcard search may help, replace, instead of just putting in ELLISON, I would put in a question mark and then LLISON, so that any character, it'll pick up Ellison with an E or Allison with an A, and then use the birth date or birth year to try to find him.
Also, do a first name search. Look for
Yeah.
just Charles. If Charlie Ellison or Charles Ellison is listed with family in 1880, and if anyone is older than 10 years old, just do a first name search of look at everyone in the house. What's their first name now? And don't look for, and this is a line by line search for the county or the enumeration district, and just look for people of color, first name Charles or Charlie or CHAS period, and just look for those individuals by their first name. I think that's the Nettie rule. When Nettie, one of the twins, she and her sister have come to Maggie more than once, and Nettie Nesberry, that's one of her rules. She forget the last name, look for only the first name, and because you don't know, maybe that name changed within that span of 10 years or so.
And Moses has chimed in from the chat room, requesting that we go to the ram of the bush known as screen sharing to show people how to do a wildcard search, because folks may not be familiar with that. So if you're using Ancestry or any other website and you have a situation like in this scenario where we talked about how Charles Ellison could be under Chaz, Charlie, it could be Allison. What you want to do is when you come to search, usually for Charles, I'll put CHA, and that picks up, CH, the letter CH and A, and then any other characters after that. So it'll pick up Charlie, Charles, Charlesetta, whatever name you got. And then for Allison or Ellison, as I was suggesting, I would do a question mark. So the asterisk does, more than one character. The question mark only replaces one character. So for this one, I would still put in that, and that picks up Allison with an A or Ellison with an E. You can also do you can use up to 2 wild cards in one area. So, and it could be 2 question marks, it could be 2 asterisks, it could be asterisks and a question mark. It could be a number of different things.
Okay, I just learned that. I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, okay. Well,
I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I'm like, and you got the search exact counties and all that stuff as well, right? So let's say we're just saying he's in Hunt County, Texas, because that's where my folks was in Greenville. Don't forget, you also have this option as well to this place, exact to this place, or the county adjacent counties. She may need to expand her research into the adjacent areas, because that was the next question I was going to have was, how do you know he was living in that same county in 1870, or was it a different county in 1870, and that's why you could not find him? Did we do okay, Moses? The other thing that Shelley brought up as well is C. Ellison. It may be under an initial. I hate that those 1870 enumerators. I hate to make folks turn in their grave, but that whole initial situation just drove me up the wall this week. But that was very common. Moses said we did a good job. Any other suggestions? Because she mentioned, we talked about DNA. We talked about different ways that you could find them in 1870. Maybe, here's my other thing. Why is she so focused on the 1870 census? Has she done on-site research, or has she done local area research that would help fill in the gaps between 1870 and 1880, or, reverse 1880 and backwards? Because if you haven't done that, the 1870 census is almost like water under the bridge if you haven't looked locally to try to see what you can unearth, meaning go to the county courthouse, go to the state archives, have you checked newspapers for that region? There are a lot of ways to make up for not having 1870. I don't have the 1870 census for every one of my ancestors, but you best believe I have gone to the local level and in other areas to try to fill in that time between 1865 and 1879. Anything else you guys can think about? And Moses says go for a death record, absolutely, but you won't find that information sometimes unless you go on site. And we don't know where we're looking. 3,479 Charles Ellisons.
Yeah, but if she knows where he is in 1880, she knows where he is. We just don't know.
We just don't know. But remember, everything we just said still stands.
True.
Like you said, context clues. Glean the mess out that 1870.
Or you mean the 1880?
Yeah, the 1880 census, because
Yeah.
she couldn't find them in 1870.
Yeah, you need to get on that threshing floor with that 1880. squeeze blood out of a turnip with that 1880.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Anything else before we head on to current event? All right, Sabrina, you better let us know what you find, because we gave you we capped on you a little bit, as we would say in California. We jonesed you. We played the dozens with you a little bit because you weren't specific.
Yeah, please let us know. Can't hold out on us.
You can't hold out on us. So here are the instructions for Ask Mariah, just in case people forget. And I love that we choose these cases on purpose, because I want folks to see what you can and cannot get. Even though she didn't provide us with specifics, she still got a lot of information or ways that she could search for information for him. So, do you have a brick wall? Would you like help from BlackProGen scaling that wall? Submit your query to Ask Mariah today. The link is in the description of each and every episode of BlackProGen Live. Please remember to be specific. In this case, right, she didn't give us a location, so we had 3,479 Charles Ellisons to choose from. We didn't know which one was which and which one was not. So you got to be specific. Location, names, everything you've searched, so we don't duplicate efforts. If you get selected, and cross your fingers when you press submit, you just may get chosen for upcoming episodes. Just to quickly go over current events, things we've got to talk about, especially since we're talking about Texas. Construction crews discovered the remains while digging. They're believed to belong to African-American prison inmates more than a century ago. It's very interesting to see Sugar Land grow and develop. It also is very interesting to uncover some history, says Fort Bend Independent School District teacher Carla Morton. Back in April, local historian Reginald Moore told KHOU that he believes that there are unmarked graves on thousands of acres of land throughout the community. This is in Sugar Land, Texas. Hold on just a second, because somebody is acting a monkey and you are going to get blocked. All right.
And Sugar Land is close to Galveston. So
it sure is. It sure is. So let's see. He wants a dedicated graveyard for all the folks. And he added that the remains of slaves from sugarcane plantation, as well as Black prisoners forced to work the land, are likely buried in open fields and underneath homes, which is probably absolutely right. These remains are perhaps more readily discoverable while building a backyard pool, for example. Sugar Land resident Joyce Lee lives next to the construction site and said it might not prevent residents from building. So yeah, they just discovered 89 mass graves with remains that could be Black prisoners. This was just unearthed in Sugar Land, Texas. This just happened. More history. A woman bought a projector at Goodwill and needs your help finding the family in the photos. With every photo of a beaming child, a glamorous adult, or shiny muscle car, the mystery deepens. In another picture, 4 children sit on the roof of one of 3 classic cars parked on a lush green field. Another one, 2 girls playfully run with matching white smiles, red tops, and black shorts. The photos are among a treasure trove of slides Christy Beaumont found last month on a projector she bought at her local Goodwill store in North Georgia. The photos left her with many questions. Who are the people? What did they do? And most importantly, how can she find them and return the pictures? So it looks like this is a African-American family, nice cars. Too bad we can't use the license plate nowadays to try to look up who the people are, right? Like we do for Permit Patty and everybody else. So be sure to check out the post from CNN that yes, Karen, you are correct. Sugar Land is actually a suburb of Houston. You're absolutely right. It is, because I have family members that live there. But going back to the topic at hand, yes, be sure to check out this story on CNN and see maybe if these are folks that you know, and maybe we can get the photos back to the family. Oh, and you know what? That also speaks to something else. make sure you have a contingency plan for your photos and your videos. Especially if you're somebody who is unmarried, or you do not have any children, or you have nobody that you can leave things to. And don't assume that you can just leave them with the archives or leave them within library. A lot of these places are really, jammed for space, and they can't take a lot of stuff from the public. So be sure that you have vetted whatever your plan is for your things upon your demise, so that they don't end up at Goodwill. A lot of folks just drop things off because I don't have an attachment to it or connection to it. But, luckily this woman is really looking for this family, and she's got some amazing photos, at least from the one that I could see. So be sure that you have some amount of a contingency plan, and don't assume somebody is just going to take it. Just like if I had a daughter-in-law, I wouldn't assume that she was just going to want to wear my wedding dress. She may not. She wants her own thing,
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to admonish folks with that. If you have somebody, especially who was in the civil rights movement, I don't know what I did with that booklet, but veterans of the movement have actually put together a small little book that talks about the colleges and universities who are seeking out the papers, the personal papers of people who were involved in the movement, so that when they die, this stuff doesn't get thrown out or, destroyed. And they talk about whether or not your family, or your descendants still maintain rights over them, whether or not they pay, whatever. I need to look for that. So if you have something or someone in your family that has a tie to that, let me know, and I will provide you with the information. All right. So go ahead and close out now. Don't forget, we've got a new look, a new theme, and more shows to get you up to speed on all things people of color, genealogy, and family history related. Visit nikasmith.com for a downloadable schedule so you don't miss a thing. Our next episode. Researchers spend so much time on dead people that they often overlook the story brewing right before their eyes. Their own. In our next episode, we'll discuss how to dial back and learn how to document your story as you do so for your ancestors. Join us for What About You? Documenting your own story next Tuesday, July 24th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Also, don't forget to tune into the archive of the long-running Research at the National Archives and Beyond, hosted by BlackProGen Life panelist Bernice Bennett. Also, check out the African Roots podcast, hosted by BlackProGen Life panelist Angela Walton Raji. Don't forget to join the conversation now. Participate in the live chat taking place at the top right hand of the screen if you're watching on a computer, and at the bottom of the YouTube app on your mobile device. Also, this is a time for me to remind you, if you're watching the show and there was something we covered and you missed it, you can actually rewind live as the show is taking place. You don't have to wait for the recording to be posted in order for you to do that. You can rewind as many times as you want and then catch back up to us live. Also, the show is recorded and the chat room is archived, and so it's there in real time, so that as the messages are flowing, you can actually see them posted at the same time. So as we post links, you'll see those come up, all that kind of stuff. So don't forget also to weigh in on Twitter by tweeting us at BlackProGen or use the hashtag BlackProGen. Gonna go ahead and turn it over to True Lewis. Just want to say thank you again to Miss Vicky for joining us.
Thank you, Nika. So we just want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank Miss Vicky and the panelists, and to our viewers. You guys are so special, and thanks for contributing all your comments. And you can hit us up in the comment section or hit us up over on Twitter and drop us a line. So we appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. And thank you. Good night.
BlackProGen Live.
BlackProGen Live.
BlackProGen.
Hello, everybody out there.
BlackProGen Live.
BlackProGen Live.
The unapologetic Black and people of color viewpoint.
The place where evidence tells the stories.